Yay, people on Zoom, that's where it's happening. Okay. But yeah, we're going to try to make this an interactive session. But this is just to give a bit of where we are at with the update to the INEE minimum standards. My name is Dean Brooks. I'm the director of INEE. And next to me is Ariel Solari. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. As Dean said, my name is Ariel Rivera Solari, and I work with the Interagency Network for Education in Emergencies with the minimum standards. Thank you, Dean.
Yeah. So as many of you know, the minimum standards are really the cornerstone of our work of education emergencies. And throughout my career, it's been my go-to for the principles and guidance for the work when implementing in the field. It's something we want to see more and more policymakers incorporate into their own work. And one way to really think about them is that guidance. And it's global guidance that really needs to be contextualized in locations where emergencies are happening. So in 2004, the first minimum standards were launched. Later, they were revised in 2010. And very excited that now we will soon be launching the next version of the INEE minimum standards. But I'm going to let Ariel give you a bit more, but very happy to see all of you here. Go ahead, Ariel.
Thank you very much. As Dean said, today we are going to have an interactive session. And the run of the show is going to be that first we're going to watch a video about the process of the minimum standards update. After that, we're going to have some questions about the process. And later on, we are going to have two activities where you will need to interact among each other, the people who are in the room, and also the people who are online also can interact among themselves. So this is the idea for today. This is not kind of a round table of people talking only, but with the spirit of the education of the, and I would like to have 2 or 3 ways of learning experience for the people who are attending this process. Well, as Dean said, the minimum standards update project was a very participatory process, and we would like to start without further ado with a video that will show us and highlight some of the milestones of that process. Thank you very much.
Education is a fundamental human right. But during times of crisis, education is too often interrupted, denying learners the cognitive development, psychosocial well-being, and hope that quality education provides. Human rights, including education, are not suspended during emergencies. So how can we make sure this right is protected when crisis strikes? Since 2000, members of the Interagency Network for Education in Emergencies have worked together to ensure that all individuals have the right to a quality, safe, relevant, and equitable education. INEE functions to build community, convene stakeholders, share knowledge, advocate for change, promote learning, and provide tools and resources. The INEE minimum standards for education are the global framework for the provision of education in emergencies. These standards, developed through consensus by thousands of stakeholders, aim to enhance the quality of education preparedness, response, and recovery, to increase access to safe and relevant learning opportunities, and to ensure accountability for those providing these services. The INEE minimum standards are designed to be used in a range of crisis situations, including environmental disasters, conflict, slow and rapid onset emergencies, and in both rural and urban environments. They're based on the Humanitarian Charter and the core humanitarian standards. The INEE minimum standards translate these principles and rights into practice, setting out agreed standards for education that are supported by clear actions, guidance, and indicators. The INEE minimum standards are periodically updated to incorporate new learning and evolving needs. The 2023 update involved more than 1,600 individuals in 26 countries, participating in a variety of online and in-person activities over more than 8 months. The inclusive process was based on the principles of broad consultation, community participation, cultural and linguistic diversity, and racial equity. We asked some INEE members who've been involved in the update to share what's new in the 2023 edition of the INEE minimum standards.
The 2023 edition of the INEE minimum standards reflects the realities and perspectives within a changing humanitarian development landscape.
The update focuses on missing or incomplete topics, on the clarity of the text, and on adjusting the format and navigation of both the digital and hard copy versions of the handbook to increase accessibility and usage.
It has been exciting to be part of the INEE minimum standards updating process. This is because some of the gray areas that have emerged over the last 10 years have been covered by the updated INEE minimum standards. Some of the areas include new guidance on early childhood education, higher education, distance education, and the role of education in addressing emergencies induced by the climate change.
The length and complexity of the humanitarian crisis has grown, requiring a stronger collaboration between a large number of actors. New standards and guidance have been added to address the need for greater coherence, coordination, and linkage with other sectors, such as health, protection, food assistance, and others.
The update includes a stronger focus on gender and inclusive education, and in recognition of the localization agenda, new guidance reinforces the central role of local actors and crisis-affected populations within humanitarian response.
The updated INEE minimum standards engage more meaningfully with concepts of anti-racism and decolonization, not only with new guidance that emphasizes the agency and knowledge of local actors, but in providing guidance in a format and language that is more accessible and easy to use.
The INEE minimum standards express a commitment that all individuals, children, youth, and adults have a right to education whenever and wherever crisis strikes. The updated handbook is a powerful tool in protecting this right. Look for the new handbook coming soon.
Visit INEE.org to learn more about the INEE minimum standards and become a member today.
Exciting, huh? You're just ready to get your copy. But as they said, I mean, it is an incredibly consultative process. And at the moment, you probably saw the line. I mean, the numbers of countries involved, more than 1,600 individuals involved. And at the moment, the revision process is happening. And as you could probably imagine, in the INEE world, we're over 20,000 members now, actually just recently passed the 20,000 mark. And that means everybody reading it is reading it with a critical eye from every perspective, from higher education and emergencies to gender, to inclusive education, to disability inclusive education. And so that feedback is coming in, and I don't know how many hundreds of pages of feedback the writers are working with at the moment, and it's incredible. But I'll let Ariel share some more.
Thank you, Dean. As you correctly highlighted, we work in the countries that were pinned in the map, and in all the countries, we work also online and offline. There was people, INEE members in each of the countries highlighted that work in the language of the country to gather and do assessment of the opinions and the inputs of the different stakeholders. In Afghanistan, we work in Dari and Pashto. In Haiti, we work in French and in Creole. In Nigeria, we work in English and in Hausa, and so on. We try to have that access and the people let giving their opinions in their own language. As Dean said, this is a process that will finalize in a document that is useful and for all the people working across and throughout the education nexus. But before going to the next moment of the session, I would like to open the floor to the people online and to the people here in the room if they have any questions about the update of the process or about when the minimum standards will be ready for launching. So the floor is open for questions both in the Zoom and here in the floor.
Does it work? Yes. So how exciting. I can't wait to have this in my hands. I saw the person providing a little bit of the insight of main changes. Of course, my question is around how and if PSS, psychosocial support, has been upgraded, updated, and included.
Thank you very much. Before answering, we can take more questions so we can answer them all together.
Thank you for the insightful preview of what sits in the updated standards, but my question is about what critically drives the need to review the standards apart from us going forward and facing new challenges. But is it correct to assume that update means also catching up on what is new in learning methodologies and just everything that we experience on a daily basis, but at the same time, we still anchor ourselves on education in emergencies when we have to build back better. So it's kind of a double challenge. And I just wonder what was the drivers for review and what were you paying attention specifically?
Somebody else would like to make a question, or should we go to answer directly this too?
Just to say online, it's more a connection. So if somebody from INEE can note the point online on the Zoom chat, can you see it? Okay. It's about connecting to somebody on the Secretariat, which of course we want to do. Can you repeat for me the first question? Because I was reading this.
Yeah, the first question is about how psychosocial support is now incorporated, or how much we strengthen the psychosocial support in the 23 edition.
I mean, I'm going to come back to you, but I'll jump in and then I'll let you go ahead, Ariel. Because I think your question, Camila, actually connects to the other question, is what drives this update process. What I often say about the minimum standards is each stand alone. I go back to the 2004 version. It has content that I find valuable and how it was formatted, especially the rapid assessment checklist, for example. But that's not included in the 2010. So each standalone, I would say. And in terms of the update and what was driving that, there was a lot of discussion in the INEE community. We had many developments that had taken place, when the 2010 minimum standards were launched. We didn't have Education Cannot Wait. The SDGs came about. And so there's, that could, and there was a lot of discussion about let's let this be light touch. So we just need to update the intro perhaps, or maybe we need to fix the formatting. But anything light touch, especially at INEE, becomes a big process, and it opened up many more opportunities, and for this chance to see the update happen. So psychosocial support, which is not a new term. I mean, social emotional learning, all of that, but there's renewed interest in this work, and there's been so many developments. So this is that opportunity to reflect what's happened. But yeah, I'll let you talk, because you're really, I mean, Ariel is waking up to the update process every day.
What I can say that one of also of the drivers on the update is the consultancy and how the people had provided the priorities. And in terms of psychosocial, as Dean said, even when psychosocial was already mainstream in the current version, the consultations highlighted and pointed psychosocial support also for teachers. That's a point that was we want to take into account, and we hope that is going to be strength enough in the new version, not only for the children that are attending and for the learners, because the minimum standards cover not only children, but goes also beyond children for the higher education or tertiary education, for instance. But it's very important to say that the people, the members and the education stakeholders across the countries highlighted the need of strengthening the psychosocial support and the mental well-being and the mental health for teachers. That is something very important. And also about the drivers of the update is also not only the changes that happen in the landscape of education and emergency and in the nexus, but also the needs and the demand or the request that we have bottom up to address different kind of issues and from different stakeholders, from the people who are the first line responders, for policymakers and to others. So this is also taken into account. And finally, the other driver is what kind of children's rights, human rights, and education's rights agenda as education community we would like to highlight, and we would like to put into consideration of the education and all the humanitarian and nexus development throughout. So I can say that these are the main thing that we would like to highlight. Thank you very much. We can take a couple of other questions now and before we pass to the next activity, please.
Thank you. It's a little bit linked to the last question, but it would be, yeah, I feel like there needs to be a kind of connection between the minimum standards and then the kind of pathway to getting there to kind of respond or achieve them. You know, when you're designing and implementing responses, either, you know, at the early stages or in a more protracted crisis. So it'd be really great to hear how INEE or potentially other partners can help to kind of build a bit more of that kind of evidence or that kind of menu of effective interventions, you know, in different kinds of crisis situations.
Mm-hmm.
Dean and I have talked about this.
Yeah. I think, well, I think it's an really important point. And part of it is the minimum standards will be launched, but that's not the end. That's actually when the real work begins. So since the last launch, you know, all of the work within the INEE, the working groups, they take that up. And for example, gender in education emergencies, they go to the minimum standards, they use that as a framework, and then they create the guidance that helps you work towards achieving that pathway, as you said. And that applies for all of kind of the cross-cutting thematic areas. The work on the indicator, what do we call it? The indicator framework, which was done for the 2010 version. Well, guess what, INEE, you're going to have to work on that. So it's creating more work, but exciting work and engagement. And I would like to also say for INEE, one area we've seen incredible progress is around data and evidence and expanding our work. And soon we'll be launching a platform that highlights how the minimum standards are backed by evidence and also the gaps. And there's still a lot of work to be done there. But I believe personally in my own advocacy for the standards, when we could show where there's evidence and where maybe we don't have enough, we'll also see more acceptance going forward. Because in many contexts, people are like, where is this coming from? You know, And that's also where the contextualization process is so key. As you saw in the video, there's 14 countries that have taken the standards and said, what does that mean in my country? At an official level, where ministries actually will endorse the standards, and they get to put their logo with our logo if they go through the process. And that's also part of that taking it up and part of that pathway. And we also have work to do on that. And I would say for all of you as INE members, because I'm sure you are, that's what we need your help with. And it's really that next step. But Ariel, is there something you want to add?
No, nothing further on that issue. Again, highlight the issue that the minimum standards are a tool and a framework for all the practitioners in education and emergencies, first the first responders, and to the Ministry of Education also, up to donors. And when we did the groundwork and we did the assessment, who is using and what for they are using the minimum standards, also going to your question, it was not a surprise that the main stakeholders using the minimum standards are the first responders, practitioners. But for our good surprise and for our enjoyment, also researchers are using now, as Dean said, about the evidence that has been built about education and emergency and the importance of education and emergency. Researchers are using and referring to the minimum standards more and more about the framework when they do or when they plan their research. And I think that the Journal of Education and Emergency has also a big deal to do with that. Thanks.
Ariel, before we go to the next, could you talk just a little bit more about the countries? I think it was 16 countries, which is a very exciting component of this version, is the incredible consultation that took place in crisis context. So why don't you explain that?
Yes, as I said before, we did offline consultation in 17 countries. I mean, that was, the consultation was purposely offline so we can reach the people who cannot access internet or the technological media, meaning that we had INEE members in, and you saw some of them here, Lois in Kenya, Eleftherios in Greece, Assisi in Afghanistan. We also have Honduras, we have Haiti, we have Bangladesh. We did this also in Brazil. We did it also in Cabo Verde. We did it in DR Congo. We tried to cover almost all the spectrum of the different crises and countries. Of course, we couldn't. It's impossible to cover all the countries, and we recognize that is very, very difficult. And also the outreach that we did to the community with disabilities was not enough. We also recognize that even when we did an effort and we partnered with local organizations to have the workshops accessible to the people with disabilities. We did it also in Venezuela. And also the importance of that the offline assessment was done by people, INEE members in the country, again, in the language of the people who wanted to respond. The people who were responding were the ones who say, I want to respond in my own language, or if you want, and if I can, I will answer in English or in French or in any of the other 5 INEE languages. But the main opportunity was for them to answer that. And the other thing I want to highlight about this consultation, that is the confidentiality that INEE ensure for all the respondents across the offline consultation, because we know that opinions sometimes can put practitioners at certain kind of risks. So, for instance, when we ask we ask it who wants to be in the video and who wants not to be in the video. But this is something also important to say, that all the people that participating on the offline assessment, their opinions are confidential only to INEE and were not shared only when they provided INEE permission to do so. So, as I said at the beginning, this is not only a talking experience, this is also a learning experience. And I hope that because this is the last one of the last events of today, all of you already know each other, or all of you already have the opportunity to talk to each other. If not, this will be an opportunity where you will be able to meet the other people in the room. because now we are going to go to finalize this session by 2 learning experience. One is online, it's in the screens, and now I'm going to share the handouts. We have developed a human-centered design game, online game. That means that it's a game that you need to scan the QR, or you need to go to the link, and you will download the app, and you will be able to play with somebody in the room. This is the first learning experience that you can access right now. If the game is not working, because we know that technology sometimes, and also in the spirit that as learning experience should also have alternatives, we also have some handouts that are summarizing the minimum standards update, and we are asking there 2 questions to you. We are asking, if you consider that there are any topic or any theme that is lacking, and what is your advice on the rollout and launching of the minimum standards? So, summarizing, 2 learning experience. One online, where you need to scan the QR code and find somebody appear to play here in the room, and you can keep playing later on. This is the first learning experience. Second learning experience, I'm going to distribute now the handouts for the people who would like to sit with somebody else, read the update, and discuss among yourself, and later on provide us the feedback for that. So this is the 2 learning experience that we would like to have before closing that. Dean, I don't know if you have any other final words for this.
Just let's learn. Learning experience. That sounds good.
Please go ahead. Meanwhile, you're downloading this, you really need to find somebody in the room to play, because it is a game, and it's not to play alone, it's to play with somebody else. You are going to be automatically connected with somebody else who is online. Again, for the ones who would like also to discuss face-to-face, now I'm distributing the handouts with are summarizing the minimum standards update, and you can go through the questions there. Thank you very much. And for the people online, also the link to the game and the QR is there, so you can go there and you will see that there's a lot of people. I hope that there's a lot of people online that you will also be able to play online.